The table is still looking good.
If you ever need any polishing or something.
Yeah.
No
What is the best way to polish this table? How would you go about it?
Actually, I've got some wax now. Would be good. It's had some oil, maybe some wax.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll put some wax on there and make it.
What is the wood again? What?
It's eucalyptus saligna.
Eucalyptus saligna.
Saligna, yeah. Its common name is Sydney blue gum. So it comes from Sydney. Yeah, it grows around Sydney. It used to, but this is grown at our orchard. This was planted as a shelter belt for our orchard.
It's pretty solid.
If you have an earthquake, jump under there, mate. I guarantee you'll be safe.
Well, it's been here for 98 shows, and it's gonna go a long way. We can tell. So for the people watching us at home, hello. Here we are, show 98. We've been live streaming 3 times per week, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 7 p.m. on YouTube. So if you are on YouTube right now, make sure to subscribe to our channel. That's a great way to support the platform. You can also join the platform and become a member. So you put a few dollars there for the team, and we appreciate that. Okay. If you want to listen to the audio versions, you can go on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcast, Amazon Music, and ALTBAYS is there right after the end of the live stream. We upload the audio version. We're way quicker now than before. If you cannot put up with a 1 hour and a half, 2 hour conversation because your attention span is short, or your time is short because you're a busy man, busy woman, you can go to ALTBAYS clips, where we break down the chats into small clips, and then you can watch them. If you like them, you watch the whole show. There you go. We're also on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. Roger, are you on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook?
Instagram and Facebook.
With Corowood, right?
Yes, Corowood is the way to find it.
How do you find posting, being updated, being like online on social medias? Do you like being on social media?
I used to do the Facebook thing, you know, follow and friends and da-da-da, but not so much anymore. But I like Instagram more, I think. I like to look at Instagram because I follow other woodworkers, and I love it for inspiration. And certain things I follow, you know, and follow certain people as well.
Yeah.
And I like that's part of, I can get to choose, you know, whereas Facebook tends to throw lots at you. Instagram does too, but yeah.
In a different way.
In a different way. And I definitely try and use it for business, but my main thing is word of mouth, and that kind of extends the word of mouth, which is good. But yeah, I don't want to get too caught up in it.
How long have you been working with wood for? Should I call it a carpenter, or you define in different ways?
I started when I was a boy. My father was a carpenter, and I was born in Lower Hutt, and he was off at work most of the time, but he had a set of saws, hand saws for sawing wood, and they were kept in a bag, you know, and I wasn't allowed to touch those saws. Ooh, they've got to be sharp for work, you know. So little boy, want to cut a bit of wood, didn't have a saw, wasn't allowed to saw, but he would let me use a hacksaw, you know, for cutting steel, because that didn't matter if I broke a blade or whatever. And so I would put the wood in a vise and cut with a hacksaw. It would take hours and hours. I swore when I was a little boy, when I get older, I'm going to have the biggest, most powerful saw, and hence that's how I make this wood. And then I went on to do my carpentry apprenticeship with my father. So I worked with him for 5 years from when I was probably 16. I left school at 16, and we moved up. Eventually we ended up in Gisborne, and we started doing labour-only housing and building. So I did a lot of building. And then I built all over New Zealand, built houses, many houses, and alterations, and restored old houses. Did a lot of restoration of old houses. But I really wanted to work with wood, and I found carpentry, it was all composite materials. Gibboard, chipboard, plywood. It wasn't solid wood. I mean, of course, you can work with solid wood, but you need an expensive, a rich client, basically, now to work with solid wood. So I wanted to get into solid wood. And then an opportunity came along. And then I got into leather work. I was working with leather And I made bags, and had motorcycle when I was younger, so I made saddlebags. I made beautiful carved saddlebags for motorcycles, and belts and things like that. I was sort of I've always been creative. So
just let me just stop you there, because you said that you dropped school at 16. Was it like, did you get to finish it, or like it was before the end of school?
That's a good question. I did school cert. I think I passed science. I think maybe another subject, a couple of subjects, and then I went back for another year and to try and pass more subjects. And then my father's business collapsed. Basically, he was a building contractor, and it was one of the greatest things that happened to our family. His business collapsed because he bought a big caravan, and the family just left Wellington, and we went away living in the caravan for some time. And we got very close, much closer than we were. We had a great big house, and we were in one room and another room. We never even knew each other, but then we got thrown into this caravan. So it was an awesome thing to happen, really. And we travelled around New Zealand, went to Whakatane for a while, and then my father ended up in Gisborne. And then like I say, carpentry wasn't really wood. I mean, sure, wooden framing, but it wasn't really wood. So I was into leatherwork, and then I moved to Petone, back to Wellington. I was living in Petone, and in Petone there was a little shop called the Woodturning shop, and that was run by a man called Brian Massey. Brian Massey was an ex-teacher, become a woodworker, and he was the man that made all the trees, the Ents in The Lord of the Rings. He went on to do that later on. And I started down this road of working with wood because I was a carpenter, and I went fishing one day in an unusual place, and there was a big old stump, and I was sitting on the stump, and I scraped it with a knife, and I thought, gee, that looks like kauri. How can it be kauri? This was in Wellington. Kauri only comes from Coromandel and Northland, but it could. I thought it must have floated down and come in through the harbour. And I took a friend, my friend I was working with, he was a joiner, and I took him back one day, and we dug this stump out of the sand, and we were working on the stump, and we got it just about on the back of my truck. We dragged it to the top of a little hill, and we just about pushed it, and we're struggling, trying to push it. And these two guys we saw earlier in the morning who with fishing rods, they saw us pushing the stump, and they run along, and they came, and all four of us pushed it, boof, and it went on the back of my truck, smashed the deck, but it stayed there, tied it on, and I took it to my friend Brian Massey, the one who ran the shop. I said, Brian, I think I have a kauri stump. And he looked at it, and he says, that's impossible. And he looked at it and says, you know what, I think you're right. I said, what am I going to do with it? And he said, well, wood turning would be a good option.
Wood turning.
Wood turning. Yes.
What is it?
Wood turning is bowls, basically, or spindles. In the old days, you always had, and balustrading for staircases.
Yep.
So he said wood turning would be a good thing to do with this, and I said I don't know how to do this. He said, I've got a friend. He does a course. He was a Maori man. I can't remember his name now. He was a lovely guy, and you went along. You paid him $100 or something, and you went for a day, and you turned a bowl. You come away with a bowl and a rolling pin, and you learned how to do that. And then I came home, and then I borrowed a lathe, and he showed me how to cut this piece of wood specifically, this huge stump, and I started turning it, and I put some of the turned pieces in his shop, the wood turning shop. And they sold. And so I turned more, and they sold, because it wasn't kauri. It turned out to be, I would call it mottled or figured macrocarpa, which they call poor man's kauri. But it had this fiddleback right through the wood. And when you turned a piece of it, it was like lights shining. And every piece I turned just sold from the shop. People loved it. Pretty soon I paid for my own lathe.
Yeah.
Just by hiring the lathe, doing a course, and I thought I could actually make a living from this. So I really started to do this. And then Brian and I would go away every now and then, and he would go to places, and he would go on an adventure. And he developed these chainsaw mills. Before they had chainsaw mills, he'd built these chainsaw mills. He developed them himself so that we could break down branches from big native trees that had fallen. One of the things that motivated him, he wrote a book called Woodturning in New Zealand. One of the things that motivated him, he told me, was that he wanted to make some furniture, and he couldn't find any nice wood in New Zealand because it was all exported at that time. And he found that quite sad that we can't utilise our own timbers. So he met a farmer who was felling trees and selling the logs, big old native trees, in Taranaki. And when he'd sell the logs, but he'd left the branches. So we would go and cut the branches into wood turning blocks and take them back. So I learnt how to do this, and that's what started off my work in the bush. And then one day he told me he was going to mill a kauri tree. I said, "You can't cut kauri trees, surely." He says, "Well, this one's a special one because it's leaning over in a swamp, and it's getting lower and lower, and it's going to fall in the swamp. And the man who's bought the land is developing it, and he wants to get some money for it, but also it has to go." And I thought, okay, well, it sounds like an adventure, because in Wellington we read the stories about the Kauri Bushmen, but this was something that happened up north. We didn't really know about it. And I thought, what an adventure to come to Coromandel to mill a kauri tree. So off we went, and we stayed for 2 weeks in a swamp, basically, and milled this tree. And I used my skills to break it into wood turning pieces. Sometimes it's 100 mils, or 75, or 40, or 25, 30 mils. I rip them freehand with a chainsaw into wood turning blocks. They're only small pieces, but that comes from the branches. And while I was there, this was in Boat Harbour Road, the man who was selling the tree to us on his land, he was subdividing the land. And he said, and at that time I was looking for a place to buy in Wellington, and the places you could buy for quite a lot of money were pitiful. For a little bit of money, he was going to sell me this block of land. And I thought, wow, the Coromandel on top of a hill with all these views. And that just lit a spark in me.
Roger, the kauri is so important for Aotearoa. Like, it's so relevant for what the country is. And like, at the time that the English was taking a lot of the resources, was kauri the big one? Was it like the big thing that was taken to other countries? Or?
It was really interesting because Captain Cook took some wood back with him. A little bit. He saw these giant trees up in the River Thames. This is what I've read. And he took some back with him, and it was kaihakatea. Because kaihakatea is actually our tallest tree, but it also grows very compatible with kauri, and it can be confused for the two because they're both such giants. And it rotted very quickly. Didn't last. Kaihakatea doesn't. It's not a durable wood. They made it into butter boxes and put butter in it and exported it from the Hauraki Plains. That was all a huge kaihakatea forest. And they cut them down and basically turned it into dairy. And the trees they cut down, they turned into butter boxes and exported them. But they didn't last. The wood rotted quickly. So that actually saved our kauri trees for 100 years. And then they discovered that kauri itself was so durable and could be used for boat building and for masts. And I think something happened overseas. What were they getting to build the ships, the sailing ships in England? They were getting certain masts, I think, from America. Then, of course, the revolution happened, and then they couldn't get those masts from America anymore. They were tall enough, so they had to look around in the world to find trees tall enough to make masts from, and spars for ships. So kauri was it, and a lot of it got exported. I believe a lot of it was used for when they rebuilt San Francisco after the earthquake or fire that they had in San Francisco. A lot of it was taken over there and used in building there.
I was reading on your website, it's one of the oldest trees in the world.
Genetically?
Genetically.
Yes, definitely one of the oldest. And also, it dates back 85 million years.
Wow.
That genus. It does occur here, and it only at the moment in New Zealand it seems to only initially when white men came, there was a line between Makatu in the Bay of Plenty and Raglan basically, and everything north. That was the only place kauri appeared, but they've found fossilised kauri gum in the South Island, so chances are the whole country was possibly kauri forest at one time.
What is so special about the kauri gum?
The reason the wood is durable is because of the gum. The gum was used, just the gum, when they dug it and bled the trees, was used for varnish. And actually still today, if you find a master violin maker, he will tell you that Kauri gum is the best varnish for his violins. They still use it. It's quite valuable for that. But, you know, varnish was one, but I think they used to make like linoleum from it. They used to process it somehow. And also just a piece of gum itself is quite beautiful, isn't it? When it's processed, it's a bit like amber.
Amber. I'm curious to find out because you have an orchard, right? Mm-hmm. So for the people watching at home, if you're listening, you can't see, but there is beautiful citrus from Roger's orchard at the table, which is beautiful, on the table, which is beautiful. I wonder when you started to go from your passion of like cutting wood and dealing with wood, with understanding the intricacies, you know, like in the biology, you know, you cut it and it bleeds. Well, if it bleeds, it's alive, and then you go, and then there's the roots, and then there's the mycelium, and then there's the soil, and then there's this beautiful thing of finding life and aspects of it everywhere. And I know that you love this conversation, so I just wonder if everything was connected for you, that you started to make sense of the biodiversity and the environment around you, or you went to another direction in life that took you to getting more connected to nature itself?
When I came to Boat Harbour, which is in Whenua, you know, over the river there. Well, I still live in Whenua, but not the same house. And I moved into the bush. I had a dream of making, I didn't really know what it was. I thought, you know, like a food forest. I thought I want to make a food forest. I always had this kind of dream. I want to get a piece of land and make a food forest and grow trees. Trees for timber, but also trees for food. And while I was there, and I first moved there in the 1980s, next door to me was a community, Taputahi community, and I met a friend. He's dead now. He's a lovely man by the name of David Elliott, and he had a book. Oh no! Now it wasn't his book. It was another guy that lived there. But anyway, somehow I ended up with this book, Permaculture 2, and that's what started it really for me, is reading about this is exactly what I want to do, and this man has done it and is doing it, and this is the manual on how to do it. And so permaculture was a big thing, and that is holistic. And if you understand what holistic means, and then to relate that to biodiversity, it is one, but it's very diverse. And I love the way that you talked about the mycelium, because this is something I'm becoming much more aware of.
The veins.
Exactly.
The connections.
The web, the network.
The web.
The network, the natural network. And what's really interesting, I don't know if you've ever seen this, was, you know, that there's a movie, Fantastic Fungi, or something like that.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
What's the name of the guy? Taylor, the one with the mushroom head? Paul Statements?
That's
Paul
the one. Fascinating. And he, anyway, that movie, it talks about the that network. The Japanese rail system. I don't know, was it underground or above system, or they couldn't design it. They couldn't come up with a way to work it, and they followed how the mycelium worked from one particular fungi. You know, because you know what mycelium is. You dig a hole, you pull it up, you pull out the roots, and there's these white fungus things. That's the mycelium that's connected under the ground. You know, that's all connected, and it can be connected. And this forest that I've just been to, that's totally connected under the ground. You know, so you can see it's connected above, but it's totally connected under the ground. So that mycelium, and that they designed that network of rail from a natural way that the mycelium grew, and it worked. So this tells me something about nature, how incredible the design of nature is, and how we are foolish to ignore this.
You mentioned permaculture, and I wonder. I'm not a. I don't know much about it, but I understand that there's a beautiful balance between things that allow that environment to stay healthy and alive, because you're focusing on the big picture. You're not just going for the veggie, whatever. You're working on everything.
A garden.
But then, can it get messy because of pests? Because there's a topic that is such a hot topic, and for me, as someone who is plant-based, who pay attention to like how animals are treated, and it always goes back to that conversation of like, well, to have a environment that it's in perfect balance, or at least close to it, species shouldn't have been introduced to a place because they end up destroying that place. So it's always a topic that I love to hear opinions from people, because I see people saying we got to find a way to get rid of this or control this. So is it a thing when you're dealing with permaculture, it can make it tricky with the pests that you have around, or there's a way also to embrace them?
That's a really good question.
Throwing you in the fire.
That's a really good question. It's a really good question.
Go, Roger,
especially when we living in New Zealand. Because New Zealanders seem to be the worst or the best, I don't know which way to put it, at releasing toxins into the environment. And we see a pest, we poison it. We have such beautiful timbers here. We have totara, which is stable in the ground for 100 years. You can get a totara post and split it and put it in the ground and last 100 years.
Totara.
The Maori knew because they made their waka from it. In fact, they prized it more than kauri because it was easier to work. And the logs were huge again. And it's like a cedar in a way, but it lasts in the ground for 100 years. And I had a job replacing piles in Gisborne with my dad in the late 70s. And it was taking the totara posts out of houses that were 110 years old and putting in tannalized ones, And so we have this timber, and then suddenly someone came up with this idea, we're growing pine trees, they grow really fast, they're really strong, let's poison the hell out of them so they last in the ground. So basically all over New Zealand, wherever we put in a post or a fence we stick poison, arsenic everywhere, all over the ground. And then we see a weed, we spray it. Or if that doesn't work, we'll invent a new poison that will kill it. We have a problem with one of our biggest problems, which I was talking to you about before, is possums and rats in our native bush. Of course, you've got goats and pigs and deer as well, big animals. You can see a big animal and deal with it, but those possums, the rats, are actually more insidious. They're destroying more birds than they eat the eggs, And what do? We poison. What permaculture says is there's systems, there's natural systems. My neighbour, this is an example, my neighbour has a big dairy farm. And one day he comes to see me and he says, I've got this terrible problem with buttercup. Buttercup? Buttercup is that little yellow flower. The farmers consider it's a weed. When we were kids, we used to love it. You put it under your chin. If it's yellow, you like butter or something. I don't know. Buttercup. And his whole farm can be covered in it. And our farm too, next door, the orchard, we've got, it's a little farm and we have buttercup. So I started doing some research on buttercup because he wants to spray 2,4-D, which is a hormone spray, with a helicopter over his entire farm, which is right next to our organic orchard.
2,4-D.
2,4-D. It used to be 2,4,5-T, and now they have they banned it because it was a terrible poison.
Let's go for 4.
Five's
too much.
Have you heard of Agent Orange?
Agent Orange.
Yeah, they used it in the Vietnam War for obliterating vegetation so that they could see the Viet Cong. Mm-hmm. So they sprayed even American troops died from Agent Orange poisoning. Agent Orange was manufactured in New Zealand. We're really good at poisons. And so this is a derivative of that. Still allowed to be used today. And they sprayed it with a helicopter. And I says, look, mate, we've got an organic orchard. But what was good for me is I did some research and I found that the reason you have buttercup is the weeds will tell you something. This is what I'm trying to get at with permaculture. The first principle of permaculture is just to observe. That is the first principle. So whenever something you can't work out or you get stumped, observe. Just wait. Just wait. Just be patient and watch. Don't blitz it with poison. Give it a chance. So what I found out was that buttercup is there because of nitrogen, too much nitrogen, and compact soil. It's basically trying to heal Gaia, the same as gorse is trying to heal because it's nitrogen fixing and it puts lots of fibre in the soil. All these weeds, they're trying to just heal our planet, and we blitz them with poison. So it was good for me to find this out because now I know. And what causes nitrogen and compact soil? Animals. We have a few animals, but he has thousands of cows.
So I'm sorry, what do they cause? Is it like the waste? Is it the...
Yeah, well, nitrogen from the pea is probably the most, nitrogen from the pea. And also, farmers are amazing. They go along to, what would you call it, MAF, Minister of Agriculture and Fisheries, government, sponsored by Big Ag. And they... they will recommend that you put more nitrogen on because they sell nitrogen. And if you follow that back, you get back to J.D. Rockefeller, who owned all the oil companies in the 30s and the 40s and had this byproduct of nitrogen. And what are we going to do with it? It's megatons. We're getting tons of it. We'll sell it to farmers. And that's what they do. They've been doing it since J.D. Rockefeller decided that he needed a market for nitrogen. So everywhere around the world, they pump chemical nitrogen.
What is their version of the story, that the nitrogen is actually good?
Oh, yes, of course. It makes the grass go poomph. Makes grass go poomph.
But that's the healing thing that you just said before. It's finding a way out.
Well, they're trying to kill the weed because they want the grass, aren't they? They're trying to kill... The weed is there. There's not grass. And maybe it could be a bit toxic for the animals.
Right.
But not that. They want it. They want to feed their animals. They just want one grass. You'll see, if I see a paddock, a farm, a beautiful farm with no weeds and just one grass, I know one thing. It's just like this fruit here. You see the blemishes on the skin. A perfect farm is sprayed the hell out of. There's no other way. However, those weeds are there, for instance. Those weeds are the biodiversity. Do you see? The other thing with one grass or one tree, pine trees, is monoculture. Everything else is monoculture. Biodiversity is everywhere. Monoculture is we make monoculture. And when we make monoculture, we create more weeds. We create the problem weeds because of the monocultural system. This is what I was learning about from permaculture.
In what ways or in what moments it's actually fine to go for monoculture? Like, is that a situation that you're like, this is fine, this is good for, or nah?
I can think of none. That would be like to say, let's just have all brown people or all white people or all black people. It's the same. It's not just biodiversity in the plant world. It's biodiversity in the animal and the human world. Biodiversity. There's this friend of mine. I won't say names or anything. I wouldn't anyway. But I want him to come to the show because he does this spraying, of a lot of areas. And he was telling me, it was such an interesting story to pick on people's brains. He was saying, oh man, like we make this beautiful fruit, huge, this big, and we send it overseas, man, and without the spraying, we wouldn't be able to do that, and we're sending it, and but the conversation was going that direction, so I stepped back because I'm learning, listen. And then, and it goes, but it doesn't stay here. It goes and people are happy because the fruit's happy. And it didn't take long. He was like, but I'll tell you what, if people knew what is in the shit, they wouldn't eat that fruit. And I was like, yes, I'm glad I waited, but it goes overseas. And I'm like, bro, if you're telling me that it goes overseas, what comes to us then?
from countries that maybe the legislation to pesticides is even worse. Brazil is one of the worst ones, you know, like countries in South America, they fuck up with what they can do, what they put in the soil. And I said, imagine what comes to New Zealand if you're telling me that it's fine to send it away. Like you missed an essential part of globalization.
It's not just the sprays with food. It's also standardizing. This is the problem. Standardizing.
It has to
the
look
kiwi
like
fruit
this.
has to be that big. Well, it has to be that big. Exactly that big. How do you make it that big? You spray high cane on it, acid, to burst the flowers at the same time, which is highly toxic to birds, bees, all sorts of creatures. But we're going to put it on because it'll make all of them burst and they'll all be the same size. No fruit is the same size. Look, there's nothing the same size there. There's no fruit is the same size. Also, that's ripe. I picked that ripe. They pick it way before it's ripe because it's got to go through heaps of processes before it goes overseas. And it's possibly the same at the other end.
So is it a nutrient deficiency thing that occurs there when you pick
if you don't pick it when it's ripe, absolutely. And also, forget about nutrients, forget about what it looks like. What does it taste like? You tell me that you can get a better orange than that from a supermarket that's just been... Never. That tastes... Yeah. So okay, and then I know that taste, it's tasting good to me because it's full of nutrients.
Wow.
And the sugar content is correct.
Roger, I love this talk so much. However, I have to be realistic. It's a lot of people in the world. I don't think that the amount of people is the problem. I think it's greed that is the problem. Because if we can make food travel and things go from A to B, it doesn't matter. So it's distribution. So
same with water.
I'm not going there. But like, what are the best ways now that we are aware of all these things, like to make good starts? You know, like is it community work? Would you say? Like it has to start small, or you think that no, we have to aim for the heads of the motherfuckers, the big ones? You know, like what's the thing? What would you say? You have a good view on society and system, and you've been studying. So,
yeah, I love reading. I love reading and watching podcasts and things with a guy by the name of Charles Eisenstein. He wrote a book called "A More Beautiful World We Know in Our Hearts Is True or Possible," something like that. And I've read many of his books, but that's probably the best one. And you know, he's an ecologist, but he's a researcher, quite an incredible man. And he talks about the stories we need, but he also talks about community. We had an interesting conversation before with Taylor when he said, you know, if if everyone did what they loved, wouldn't all the jobs in the world be done? And possibly not. You know, but there would be solutions to that. But it's about taking responsibility for your food, and not putting it on someone else, and taking responsibility for the waste, and taking responsibility for your health, and taking responsibility yourself. So, to do that, what does responsibility mean? It means ability to respond. So, how do you respond to what's happening? You know. Well, my way of thinking is that you plant a garden, you make compost. And if that's not your thing, then your friend does, or your brother, or your sister, or your mother, or somebody in your community makes a garden. They grow compost, because compost is part of the cycle of life. It's the biodiversity. It's where the mycelium comes from.
It's where we go.
It's where we go. Who's the head of the food chain? The worms.
The worms. Yeah.
The worms.
I love that
are the
quote
head of the food chain.
At the end of the day, we will realize that they are in charge. They're just growing us, waiting to eat us. Go worms. Fuck yeah.
Power to the worms.
That's why I'm trying to keep a healthy man, to give them a good meal, all right. Oh, shit. But then we don't look after the soil.
No. The soil's dying.
It will fuck up with our ability to think smart, to make decisions, to understand how things are operating. I would say, am I going too far to say that affects our health big time?
No, I think the soil is the key to all of it. You know, some people Charles Eisenstein is a researcher, and he shows you that people think that fuel, internal combustion, the planes and the cars, that's causing global warming. Actually, look at the research and you'll find that that's half of it, but the other half is turning the soil over.
Oh, I saw Sadhguru talking about that. He went to Joe Rogan to talk, and I'm not a big fan of him, but he got that one.
Just turning the soil. And every agriculturalist around will turn the soil, actually turn it over. And then what that's, all the carbon's just, it's if you could imagine there's Gaia, Mother Earth, and you rip big slabs of skin off it. And we, imagine us, if you rip big slabs of skin off us, that's what you're doing when you turn the soil.
What is the main reason why people turn the soil?
It's easy. And they turn it and they spray it. And they kill the mycelium, and they kill all the nutrients, and they kill all the life, and they kill the worms.
And that's what you want, eh? You want that compost, you want that soil that is full of worms.
And it's full of bacteria. Biodiversity. Biodiversity is the soil. It's not just plants. It's the soil. It's the mycelium. It's the fungi. That's biodiversity.
And then we jump to the next issue of that, which is people not having time, people not having space. We're all used to I won't even say easy and quick solutions, because it sounds like I'm putting myself out of the situation. We're all part of a system that it's broken. But there's no time sometimes to cook, because there's work, there's the children, there's the bills.
Well, there's also Netflix.
There's
people do a lot of stuff. Everybody's guilty of it. Everybody's guilty of it, of wasting time. It's procrastinating, really. Yeah, I understand. Yeah, it's no time to make a garden. No time to make a garden. Well, do you want to be healthy? Do you want to be ill? Have you got time to be ill? Be time to be unwell? Because prepare for it. If you're buying KFC, if you're living off KFC or food from the takeaways or cans, or even just from the supermarket, most of it, you've got to find time to be ill. You've got to find time for that little packet of pills next to your bed.
Isn't it interesting how the idea of comfort that people work so much to achieve, it's what's going to fuck you up. It's what's going to make you sick. Because comfort makes you sit still.
Soft.
We produce less. We were talking about it before, right? Like, oh, it's busy, Leo. Yeah, it's busy. But like, I have no time to think about shitty things. I'm not depressed. I'm not looking at, I'm not sitting still. Like, I'm doing stuff.
But you found your thing. You found it, and that's what's hard for people. That's what I say. If you did what you love, if everybody focused on that, if everybody focused on finding who they are, their thing, I think that would sort a lot of it, wouldn't it? Would sort a lot of it.
Do you? Is your son still homeschooling?
Yes.
How is that experience?
It's more unschooling now.
We
tried the homeschooling thing.
Take us through how was that decision, and how is it going?
It wasn't easy in the start. I tell you what, it wasn't easy, because that's a lot of things. It's about time again, isn't it? I mean, what's school? It's a babysitter. Nowadays, it's a babysitter for data, turning your children into data. That's what it seems. It seems that's what the education department is teaching teachers. Homeschooling's, it's awesome now. I just see him blossoming. I mean, I have to say, part of it is I have you to thank of teaching him the drums. And the sessions you gave him. That's so uplifting. And to see him grow from that. And then I'm teaching, Diana and I, we're both project-orientated people. So at first, when we started homeschooling, first of all, it came when the lockdown first started to happen. And then we were forced to homeschool. And then just getting them to do maths and to do reading and to do these things, it was such a chore. And then also it's a chore to get him to school. After the breakup of when he didn't go to school, and then he has to go back to school, and then what's happening at school, you have to wear masks, and they might force you to get jabbed, and what's going on? It was easier to take him out of school. And then so we applied for homeschooling, and it was a long process. It took 3 months.
Oh, because how is the process? Do you have to...
It's difficult. The government make it so hard. They want to industrialise your kids, mate. They've wanted to industrialise your kids since the start of education.
So you apply for a license or what, and then you prove that you will follow at least some kind of... How does it work?
Yes, you have to prove that you have to prove that the child will... How can you measure his progress? How are you going to measure his progress? That's what you've got to do. You've got to prove that. Prove that you can measure the progress in maths, reading and writing, sciences, arts. How are you going to prove those basic subjects that you're making progress?
So they ask you that question.
Yes. Oh, you've got to prove it. They ask you to. That's what you have to do. If you want to take them out of school, take them out of school. You've got to prove that. Pretty much.
And then it's kind of like a test that he has to go through, and then you guys, or it's more like your job of doing
we have to do something. How do we test them? How do we test that? At school they do it all the time. It's constantly tests. How do you test that progress?
Right.
And that's where it comes back to data in schools. We've got the child as a piece of data, and we can do, and they're making this progress and that. And like I say, I realised that Diana and I are project-oriented people, and we love our lives. We have good lives, and I think projects are, you're not 9 to 5. You get to choose which 24 hours a day you work when you're self-employed. You have to work, but you can take some time off, but you've got to work. But like you love it. Like me, I love to work with wood, and I love to work with trees and orchard and grow things, see things grow. And then I realised that he needs to just find what he loves. But also. The unschooling is like so. Then we when we first took him out, then we're trying to teach him maths, and so we've got all the curriculum, and we're trying to do what the teachers are doing. It wasn't working either. He doesn't want to do that. I don't want to do that. Not for you. You're my dad. All right. So now, come out. You're gonna drive the tractor. Okay. You want to do maths, or you want to drive the tractor? So. What choice would you choose if you were a little boy? And so now what I teach him though is if I have a project, I have to sit down I have to do paperwork, I have to sit down, I have to make quotes, I have to send off quotes, I have to itemize things, I have to do research and find prices on things, and I have to, there's all kinds of work, and of course Diana's work is very similar. She has to do a lot of things for her projects, but hers is mainly in the office working. But she's also very, very talented in other areas, and so she's passing those skills on. But she's project-oriented, so we show them how you do a project. How do you do a project? Well, you don't just go and do it. You've got to make some plans and sit down. So that's what we're doing. We're just teaching them how to do projects.
I see a lot of kids doing good at school, and I see a lot of kids struggling with it, and sometimes the school comes up with a more personal program for them. There's some sort of adaptation. What would you say, or how do you see the situation of parents who are caught up with their busy lives? Like they're part of like they have to do the 9 to 5. It's just like how they were brought up and the social conditions that they live in. But maybe they are not that happy with the education that the kids are getting. Not many
people are they? Not many parents.
And that's why it's tricky, isn't it? Because like, how do you go about, like, you still have to tick the boxes and raise that family, but then there's that thing with like, they go to school but maybe they're not too sure about saying that. It becomes a bit of a catch-22, doesn't it?
It does. And also it's not easy to not take them to school. You'll have the truant officer knocking on your door, the police will come around. But I would just say there's a lot of homeschool now. after the lockdowns and things, there's a lot more homeschool. There's big, you just have to look on Facebook. There's huge movements going to homeschool, a lot more so. Yeah, and it takes, we're with him. He's with us all the time. That doesn't necessarily make it easy, but it's much more easy when we stop trying to drum academia into him. It just seemed that was not working. Yeah, that's. I don't know. I don't know the answer to this.
It's a tricky one. I like to do that exercise of putting myself in the other position, especially the ones who are at a lower social level. I'm always like, man, I really believe that we gotta be the change that we want to see, and then you're part of the what really matters. You see people looking up to you and say, oh, not looking up, but like realizing what you're doing, and you say, oh, there's an opportunity to be myself there. But I struggle because people live in the shit, and it's the awareness thing that we were talking about. Sometimes you're not even aware of how much shit is already here on you. It's the addiction, it's the pills, it's the shitty food, it's the lack of time, it's the lack of preparation on how to raise a family, and then the internet that it was supposed to be the best tool ever. Come on, really? Like, is there anything better connecting all of us? And we demonize it because we don't know how to deal with it, because we're too caught up with the stuff, and then you don't know how to. So that's what gets me every time. It's a powerful system. It's been planned and orchestrated for too long to get us on every single opportunity that.
That's what I say. I think that you can't vote new systems in. I would vote for a person who says, when I get in, I want to change the system. And a lot of people will say this. And when you get in, you're just stuck in the system. I did my little one term on the community board when was it, 2004 to 2007. I was on the community board in Taurapāwanui. And then I saw how hard it is to make any changes, so hard within the system. I think it's easier to make them outside of the system.
So how does it work? Do you have like meetings and then you bring ideas to the table and then...
That's what's interesting, isn't it? You have many meetings. They told me I'd have a meeting every 6 weeks. When I started there in the first year, I went to 54 meetings, so that was a meeting every week. And some 2 or 3 meetings in a week, and of course, and we were organising a community plan, and this was huge, and all those community plans, reserve management plans, how to manage the reserves, and I've seen all of that made with beautiful people, consultations, out to the community, and then I see, just what's just happened down with the boating club, and council just comes and talks to nobody and puts bollards in where we rig our boats. It's like, do you even talk to people? It's the worst thing about politics I see is the agendas. First, you've got the agenda from the top down. Then you've got people in there, in the community board, and I've seen it's rife, and the council, and the people who work in the council, the employees, with agendas. They have their own personal agendas. They're not there for the community. They're not there for the whole. They're just there for their personal agendas. It's been rife in Coromandel for a long time. Chris Lux and Steve Ruru was the CEO. Chris Lux was the mayor. He was an ex-real estate agent. All the funding for the roading in Coromandel suddenly gets budgeted for his road to Tutiawa for his subdivision. I see over in Cook's Beach all kinds of things with that development over there. On the community board, just sits there on the community board, and then what's going on in the background? Subdivision, real estate, lining my pocket. I've seen so much of that. Personal agenda. At that time, it was the Whangamata Marina. Staff members who are changing reserve status because they have shares in the Whangamata Marina. Second in charge, right up there, found out about this, took him to the ombudsman, didn't I? Do you think I could make any headway? They're experts at hiding their trail. As long as you're in those places with a responsibility to your community, you should not be following your personal agenda. I went into there because we had raw sewage pouring out into our harbour, and the surfers in Tairua told me, when I go surfing, there's condoms, toilet paper, and feces floating around in the surf, man. And this is like the 20th century. What's happening? And people are getting sick from this. So that's why I joined. That's why I went. And that's what I tried to do. And the other thing I was trying to do was get a skate park in Tairua. Just a skate park. Because people have been trying for 20 years at that time for a skate park. Now they've been trying for 35, 40 years. The kids they wanted to get the skate park for, they're all grown up, got their own families. They're trying to fight for the skate park because a couple of people with a lot of money who live opposite where we want to build the skate park, and it's the only place in the whole of Tairua, have influence. You know, because they have the money, and it's agendas. That's the problem with, that's why the system, you have to take those agendas away. But then they're coming from the top as well. So when we sit at our meetings, we've got our order paper, and the Council have deducted we're focusing on this because they don't want us to focus on that. They want us to focus on this. So you've got this much to read, mate. When you get home, you've got to read that much because they're doing other stuff, mate. We want the Whangamata Marina. I've got money invested in that, and I'm working towards that. So we don't want you diggling in that. You know, this is just our little local old TCDC.
Yeah, imagine big cities. Imagine all the how much money gets out of
And the energy. That's what's sad, because there's a lot of good people. Don't get me wrong. There's a whole lot of good people, and the people that I see standing up now, you know, sticking their hand up. Yes. And then you get daunted by just lots of things to read. This much to read. You've got to. If you're going, I would say this to all the candidates. If you have an agenda for the community, not for your personal gain, now, when you get in there, don't forget it, because they'll just you'll have to forget it, because they'll fill you up with this much stuff to read. So you've got to be able to be true to yourself and stick with it. So the whole time I was there, I was working on that water and the wastewater. All the stormwater was going into the wastewater, going over to Pauanui and flooding the. And you had Lee Hopper here, and I knew his father quite well, Ian Hopper, and what a lovely man. And he created Pauanui and the waterways, and I was working kind of with him because he knew the problems. He knew that the problems were actually quite simple to fix. And you know, a lot of people knock the Hoppers, but I see them, they're more socially conscious than, you know, it's easy to pull the tall poppy down. They're more socially conscious than the TCDC. You think the TCDC should be there for the community. The Hoppers, when they do a subdivision, they'll make sure that there's reserves, you know, adequate reserves where you can play cricket. You don't have to build all into houses. You don't have to turn it all into houses. They'll make sure there's an airstrip and a place to park your boat. They're clever, and they, you know, and whereas, you know, the TCDC can be so, in the end, they built a new storage plant to fix that problem. It cost well over 40 million. And all of us are paying the rates for that now. Still paying it off. They told us there'll be 50,000 people living here. We need to spend 40 million. Are there 50,000 people living here? No, there's not. It's like, where do you get your statistics from? So,
and then Roger, but the thing is, if most of the houses from like development, they're expensive houses. You know, like it even Lee Hopper's words here. You know, like there's a lifestyle. There's a demand for a lifestyle for the houses that we build. And then you have that. And then, so there's not much attention to social housing, you know, like to accessible housing. And then you go to the other side of the spectrum, the government, the council, and you also don't see that talk coming to the table of like reallocating land and trying to do something for the people who you should be able to afford a house on a minimum wage. For me, like, I don't understand finances and shit, but just because I don't understand that part, no one explains that to me, I don't want to know. You know? I don't give a fuck.
Exactly.
If you're getting minimum wage and you cannot afford a house, your system is broken. You're fucked. You're taking advantage of people. Blank. That's it. So like, who is looking after this? Like, do we need a revolution? What's going on? Like, what are we gonna have to do?
It's a really good point, housing for people. You know, what's ironic is that, you know, I see it because we live on the Puringi Road, and you know, Cook's Beach has been developed, and Hahei and Hotwater Beach. You know, it's all been developed hugely since I've lived here. I've seen it be developed, and those houses sit there empty, and yet we have people all around us that with nowhere to live. It isn't right, is it? I mean, I don't want to take away from, if you've worked hard, you deserve your beach batch. Sure, that's all cool. But there's something way out of balance, isn't there?
And that's something that comes to this show sometimes, because people say, oh, don't forget that this is it's a fancy area of the country, like it's a
beautiful
place. And I'm like, I don't know, like what devalues a place, like it's like people who say that the butterfly is beautiful and the cockroach is ugly. You like, wow, you judge things on aesthetics, like you look at things, the way that they look, and then you judge them, boom. So that's something that gets me. I understand that, of course, you want a house by the beach when you worked hard and stuff, but like some people are from here.
What's sad, I see, the kids can't afford to live here anymore. The kids that grew up here with the families, they can't live here. But what's ironic for me is that the people that have the big flash houses, they can't find a cleaner because the cleaner can't afford to live here. This is what's already there. It's already happened. There's a friend of mine, a farmer called Graham Harsant, and he cracked me up. I says, man, people, they pull all these batches down and they build these huge houses. Because I delivered firewood for many years, and I delivered them along the foreshore of Cook's Beach, and there were lots of little batches when I first came here, and they get pulled down and these huge mansions are built there. And a lot of those people, I've talked to them, they're retired farmers or what have you, and they bought those sections for nothing, really cheap by today's standards. And, they say, I miss that old batch. We used to come down here and we could just sweep it out and go. Now we've got to get a ride-on vacuum cleaner. They do, a ride-on vacuum cleaner just to get around all the rooms. It's huge. I can see it's an investment and they want to leave they've got a bigger family, there are more rooms for the family, but that little old batch, that was special.
How do you deal with your spirituality? Do you have beliefs? Do you have...
Ooh, getting deep now.
Oh, because I was thinking, like, do you take any of the wealth from this world to other places? I don't mean specifically you, but while we were chatting, that was what was coming to my mind. Sometimes it feels like we get caught up on building wealth and life goes away. And then are we going to take any of that stuff? Some people believe that we're going to go to a different place depending on what you did on earth. So I just want your take on it. I'm just dropping the bombs on you.
Good on you, mate. I've always tried to live my life, well, not always, but I read a lot. I lived in the bush for 20, 30 years, mate. I have a great library and I read a lot. And there's a great leader, he trains leaders by the name of Zealand Kauri in America, but he died in his 90s. But amazing man, and he used to say, I like to live my life, and I love this, by the 4 L's.
By the 4 L's?
4 L's.
Okay, what are they?
To live, of course. To live. To love, because living without love is not much living. To learn, to grow. Because if you're not growing, you might as well be dead. You might as well not be living. And to leave a legacy. So those 4 L's, and if every day you do a little bit of that, I mean, of course you're going to be doing a bit of living, do a bit of loving, do a lot of loving, do a bit of learning, do something new, learn something new, do what you're learning. This is learning. And it's love, and it's living, and it's leaving a legacy. This is what you're doing. You're doing those 4 L's. So that's very satisfying. In the long term, it's very satisfying. Legacy doesn't mean a pile of money or a beach house. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about, I see my legacy as just trying to be a role model for what's possible. And that's what I'm doing with the orchard, with the permaculture. Permaculture is about systems that work with animals, work with nature. It's working with nature and putting in a little bit of effort and utilising those systems to create a reward, to create produce, to create balance as well. So to live, to love, to learn, and to leave a legacy. And that legacy is that. And I want to try. I could go to the farmer next door who sprays the 2,4-D everywhere. And I tried, and I said, look, I printed this off, and look, this is what you can do. All you have to do is rip it and put a bit of lime on, and you've actually fixed the problem. You don't need the toxins. Oh, and he wasn't interested. So you can't change people by telling them, but you can show them what's possible. So that's my legacy. That's what I think of as my legacy.
I was reading the other day, it was a cartoon thing of like humans being a virus to the world. And then someone called the guy out straight away. He was like, fuck all about indigenous people, eh? Like, like he was like, man, you getting post-industrial, bringing back that again, post-industrial revolution humans that got conditioned to live by the hour, like by the dollar, and you're forgetting that actually we've been part of this thing from the beginning. So, but then what got me in that discussion was like, maybe something to do with the ego, because I don't know if animals have ego, like I haven't had a good proper. My cat is an interesting one. But
your cat might have a big ego.
Very egocentric, man. But
seems like it, eh? Yeah. Well, we've got a cat too.
But sometimes it gets some of the L's, right? My cat, sometimes it doesn't love me that much, but it's leaving a legacy, a ball of legacy, man. But that was my reflection. That's why I kind of like to connect all the few things with like spirituality and us, because now scientists are happy because they are learning that insects feel pain. I'm like, what the fuck? It feels like we should be worrying about other things, like, man, the insects are running this world, like without them, we're fucked.
And we're losing them.
And you were so prepotent. Prepotent? Is that the word? Prepotent of thinking that the thing doesn't have feelings or pain or whatever, like what about learning from them? Look at what they're doing. If we live, it's because of them and we mistreat them, So the ego, the thing with the ego kept coming back to my mind, like it's an exercise and it's not easy to deal with it, but there's a lot of answers when you look at it, at least, right? The thing with awareness that we were talking about before.
That's what I was about to say. Exactly. It's ego isn't an enemy, because if you try and make it an enemy, then it's okay. You suddenly have a life experience that gets you to question your ego, and we generally, most of us have them at some stage. And it's not having ego. It's not about not having ego, but again, it's all about being aware of it, isn't it? And how much it drives you, and how much it affects others. Because if it's out of hand, that's narcissism, and that's malevolence. That's it's not good.
It's not good.
It's not good for those around those people that are malevolent and narcissistic, because their ego has gone wild and they're probably so removed from that spirit that you're talking about. Spirituality to me is that connection to everything. Everything is connected, absolutely everything. And I was very lucky to go to a school which was very cross-cultural. We had Chinese, and some of those Chinese were fifth-generation Kiwis. So they'd been here way longer than me. And they spoke, they had the Asian features, but they spoke pure Kiwi. There's no hint of any Chinese. They wouldn't know how to speak Chinese. Islanders and Maori from the East Cape. And we were such a diverse, biodiverse school. I was so fortunate to that, because I never saw colour. I never don't see it at all. I don't, you're a person, and I look in their eyes, and that's how I, either trust you or I don't, and that's it. But I know that even the one I don't trust, I'm still connected to him.
Yeah, I like that. I like that analogy with cells. Like it's like the human body. Like full of cells. Some of them are sick. Some of the sick cells get close to the healthy cells and make them sick. But some of the healthy cells get close to the sick cells and get them to work. Humans kind of operate in that way if you think, hey, sometimes it is time to detach from someone, to leave someone or something behind, because you got to look after your own cell.
That can be hard when it's family.
It can be hard. I'll tell you, Roger, the distance from my family, because now it's been 9 years and we've seen each other once in these 9 years.
They live in Brazil?
Yeah. They're coming for the first time in January for a visit. Oh, wow. How special.
Who's they?
Mom and dad.
Just your mum and dad?
Yeah. My sister came once to visit, so she's coming back again, which is cool.
Sorry, how many siblings do you have?
One sister.
Okay.
She's 2 years older than me.
Okay.
Yeah, she's super excited. She's traveled way more than me. Like, she's much more out there, you know, like going to places, but she's considering, but like she hasn't made a move to live at a different place, but she loves traveling. So she loves New Zealand. Like, it's going to be the second time and she's very excited.
Excellent.
Yeah, but like where I was going is that it brought us together. We've been together. We're very respectful and we love each other. But like the distance made it stronger in an interesting way, and it also taught me to give priorities to things that I'm up to, because I see sometimes I miss my family a lot, and then I talk to my sister, then I talk to someone else in the family, and they're bitching about the family, and I'm like, oh, cool, I get to miss them and love them, but I don't get the bitching.
Don't get that bit.
So it's actually good that they're only coming for 15 days.
Whoa, family are hard, eh?
Yeah, but you were going there. You were going there with the family bond.
Because, you know, I don't know, who makes the rules about that, you know? We grow up and you think, I mean, I was taught we had family values and you stick with them, you know, you never abandon your family. You never abandon your family. But sometimes you have to let people go within your family. You have to let them go because they're toxic, you know, or they have a different path. Just because they have your blood in you doesn't mean to say you have to be with them all the time. Or, you know, and what is love? Gets back to that question of what exactly is love. Banging your head against a brick wall isn't love.
And it might be that giving that space is the best thing you could do. That's where the love is. It's understanding that maybe it's better to keep the distance, and that might get to the relationship topic as well, right? Because sometimes there's respect, there's care, but the love is gone. The chemistry is gone. It's tough. I'm not saying that it's easy, but it might be a sign that it's time to find a way to set it free, you know, like to let that person go, because it's better. Keep it a good, respectful vibe while it's possible, because we know that sometimes it goes bad. That's like the whole thing about marriage and divorce, isn't there? There's so many divorces now. You know, marriage is like what, 50% or something. I don't know. It's huge. People get married, they get divorced. And it's like what happens now. You know, but you've made this vow. Well, what about the vow? Yeah. But you know, and I can see that's a very old tradition, and I'm not saying it's wrong or right, but it just doesn't seem to be working, does it, anymore? No. To swear to stay with that person till you die, you know, is that really what we're supposed to do? I'm not quite sure about that. I mean, it's beautiful in a way, isn't it? It's kind of romantic, but is it real? A lot of romance just comes out of Hollywood, doesn't it? It's not real. You know, I mean, people have been, especially in India, arranged marriages, and actually a lot of places around the world, for centuries, arranged marriages have happened that have worked. And some of those people, I'm sure, love each other till the end. But, yeah, relationship's a tough one, isn't it? And we're not them. You know, they might look very happy, and we just don't know. That's another one, because sometimes you put up with someone and then you accept that for your life. You know, like you might not even get to the point of valuing yourself enough to make a move. You're like, oh, it's fine, I'll put up with this, because maybe breaking up is even worse. The uncertainty, not knowing where it's going to take you. I think this comes back to attachment, not just with people, but with things as well. It's a Buddhist thing, isn't it?
attachment. They try and release attachment to anything. And I know, like the Tibetans, when they make those mandalas, those beautiful mandalas out of sand, and they spend hours, months, even years making a mandala, and then they just, to teach them not to be attached.
Don't even take a picture.
Don't even
to
take
put
a
on
photo
Instagram.
of it to put on Instagram. Perhaps the modern Buddhists, they might do this.
They all have cell phones.
Yeah.
Roger, I love the subject because it's becoming more. It's coming more often to the show, which is the role of genders in our society currently. The way that things are going, like there's much more freedom to be yourself or to be who you think you are. Because there's a difference there, like sometimes you're young and then you're taking one direction in life and it's good, and then suddenly you change, but then sometimes people oppress you for being that, like it's not good, and then becomes a trauma or something. But like nowadays there's space, people can speak up, and then there's values and things that start to change, like women taking more responsibility for things, like in becoming way more like active in careers, and I think it's so good, like go for it, and all the rights, and fighting for equality. And then men, I don't know. And then men, I don't know. I just like to look at things because like I don't put myself, when people say, oh, you men are all the same, I'm like, don't put me on the one, man. Don't put me on the one. Don't, like I'm doing a lot of work on myself and paying attention to what's going on to be put in a bracket. So I don't like that, but we observe society the way that it is. And I always think, I'm like, okay, well, weddings, marriages are not working anymore. Some countries, families are getting smaller. People are choosing not even to have children anymore, and the populations are getting older. So I don't know. I'm just putting it there. Do you have a take on it from what you've been watching in generations and how things are going now?
First of all, man, woman, yin, yang, there's difference. And what? Equality of outcome? What does equality mean? Equality of outcome. You want the outcome to be equal, but it didn't start equal. How can it be? How can it not be? How can it be equal? How can you get in striving for it's like striving for, we talked about it before, it's like striving for comfort. You want comfort, do you? Too much comfort and you get soft. and you think, oh, what is this? What am I working for comfort? Am I killing myself for comfort? Yeah, the gender thing's interesting, isn't it, at the moment? You know what it is? It's almost like it's manufactured as well. It's like let's talk about this because we don't want you talking about the war, or we don't want you to see what we're up to. It's a bit of that, isn't it? Oh, we've already done the disease thing and we've done the war thing. Let's get on to gender. It's like that. So the news, the news is the media. It's the same as the TCDC. It gets agendas from the top sent from government. Do this, do this, do this, do this, because there's another agenda somewhere else. And that's all coming to light, isn't it? A lot of it's coming to light now, those agendas. But the gender one is difficult. And I'm sure, I feel for people who are cross-gendered. I really feel for those people. I see that, and they must struggle. But I honestly don't know where that's leading. I don't know. All I know is that men need to be men, and women need to be women. And what is that though? It's what is that?
Yeah, because the more comfortable that I am with my masculinity, the more open I am for everything. The more I realize that it doesn't really matter. It's just another label. It's just another one, like, oh, hetero, homo. I'm like, it's a lot of stress when you should just be enjoying yourself and the people around you, Because, man, like, it's the same with I had a great chat with a friend, a female friend. And I was saying, like this thing with I love hugging people. It's a big thing for me. Like, it's very special. And when I break that barrier with friends, with men, with male friends, it becomes a beautiful thing because we come for the hug, you know. And a lot of guys a lot of guys think it's weird. But as soon as they have 5 drinks, they hug, kiss, grab the balls. But fuck, it's just like, whoa, God, didn't see that coming, you know. And then I think, wow, if maybe we could all do a little bit better with how we relate, you know, like what a affection is, you know, like in showing love. It doesn't mean that you're gonna have sexual interaction or something. It's just like, be fine, be okay with it, you know. And if people are not ready for it, it's fine too, because we all have our own times. Otherwise, it goes back to what Taylor said. The problem is that we want people to be the way that we want them to be. And we think that's the best thing.
Everybody has their own autobiography. It's like we're all running on our own autobiography, and we think everyone else knows our autobiography or should run like our autobiography. It's back to spirituality. It's back to there is only one. You see? First there was one, then there was two. Before there was yin and yang and male and female, there was only one. And there is still only one. Do you see? It's all connected in one thing.
One thing.
One. There is only one. We are one. All of us are one. So male, female, yeah, sure, you can look at that. It's all about separation, though. It's all about trying to separate, isn't it?
Would you go to space, one of those trips, if you could?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I've never thought about that.
Try to grow some stuff?
Probably not. Probably not. Probably not. No. I don't need all that technology. All that technology, where's it taking us?
I love this talk because the thing is, I think the same as you. I'm like, you know, it makes sense that we should be looking after ourselves on Earth, and no one should be suffering for all this money and wealth to be put in. However, we had people in the show that really showed me the other side of the coin, you know, of saying, if we don't invest in those things, you know, like we miss out on a lot of opportunities that happen around the earth and even to make the earth better. And, you know, like, I'm not saying that it changed my mind, because I think that like having misery in the world, it's still not cool. You know, we could find a way to have a balance in 2022, right?
Really?
Whatever that means. 2022? What year is that?
At least water for everyone.
At least water, eh? That would be good, eh? And soon we might be struggling for fresh air, you know? Like we're trying to fight for water.
Can you tax that?
So that's the thing. Yeah, I know, right? In cans. Yeah. Oxygen in cans.
I haven't got any money, I'm going to die.
Hey, how would they call it? The Red Bull, the Blue Bull, you know, like can of air.
Yeah.
So that
can of air.
A can of
Don't
air.
laugh, mate. It'll be next.
I know, right? Because like
water. I didn't think that'd be water. Water.
Yeah.
Water.
So like the water is the same, but the bottle is cooler. Yeah. So you pay more. So it's going to be the same with air. The air is free, but you can buy this.
You got to buy the bottle. Yeah, the can.
And they might put the nitrogen or something, the byproduct. Great. Anyway, my thing with the universe is because, I don't know, it just fascinates me. You know, like we love looking up. Why is that humans love looking up? You know, why do we ask ourselves those questions? And I'm like, I hope we don't ruin this earth to get to the point that we get some answers. You know, I know that the questions will never end, which is cool. I love living with that. Who says that? Neil deGrasse, like, love the unknown, you know, love not knowing.
Embrace it.
Don't worry.
Absolutely.
But like, we know that it's just natural progression, that we will get some cool answers about cool things, you know, like, and
a good example of this is the America's Cup. You know, I love to sail, you know, and I love to teach sailing. And, well, I did love to teach sailing. I did it for many years. And that was part of the education thing for me, is to get kids out of school. Get them out of school. They don't have to be locked, because I didn't like being locked up in a classroom all the time. You have to get out. So that was part of getting the sailing program going. But, you know, I love watching the America's Cup. But, you know, those guys spend as much on one of those boats or the team, as one country earns Do you know what I mean? That's obscene how much money they spend. But the technology that comes from that, I mean, you see those boats lift up out of the water and foiling now. That's incredible, isn't it? It's just incredible what they do. So next thing then, it's like Formula One racing. You know, I'm not really into watching cars go around and around. I'm not really into that. However, we wouldn't be driving the cars that we got if we didn't have that. And the same, we wouldn't be able to drive. And the same with the space program. So many things. I mean, you could have that discussion with Elon Musk, and he's quite an amazing character, isn't he?
I would love to have a chat with Elon Musk, man. Hope he's watching.
There's Joe Rogan's podcast with him is brilliant.
Yeah. He's been a couple of times, I think.
I think so. Yeah.
What podcast do you usually follow? Which ones do you like?
Well, I go more on the topic than the people. Yeah, just if it's a good topic. Yeah, and Charles Eisenstein, I listen to a lot of his podcasts.
Have you come across Lex Friedman, the guy with the suit, the black, always with a black suit? He's Russian, but he studied in America.
Oh no,
very interesting. I can send you some.
Oh, I'd like to see
some links. Yeah,
okay, yeah. No,
again, we were talking about the power of the platform. Right, of being able to have conversations with people that you probably wouldn't find on TV maybe, or it would be at 3 a.m.
And also it's in a way that's not like an interviewer trying to get some dirty secret. You know what I mean? This is a relaxed conversation. It's not that, trying to put you on the spot so we can get some good airtime.
Are you going to vote in this election?
That's a good question. I want to vote for systematic change. I don't want to vote for people, and I'm not sure about what to do about that. You know, I don't not want to vote, but I don't want to vote in the system because the system has had it. It's broken. It's absolutely broken, and we've seen it. You know, if you can't get it, if you haven't got the proof of how broken it is, then you're blind. You know, you have to wake up because it's very, very broken. All the systems are.
All of them.
And it starts with the financial system. It all starts with the financial system. As soon as they created debt, every dollar comes with debt. As soon as they created debt, as soon as they created interest, then it's never going to be... Talk about equality of outcomes. How can there ever be an equality of outcome as long as you've got debt? As long as you've got everybody in debt. Everybody's in debt. Who do we owe this to?
That's right.
So then the financial system has to change, and then the political system. Those two systems, change those two systems. So that's what I would vote for.
But we don't
vote
get
for
to
that.
vote for those things.
No, we don't. Oh, don't we?
We've
got a bit of paper. Write it on there.
Well, right.
I vote for systematic change. I don't know. Is that what to do? Is that how to? Because I want to be. I not so much now. I'm older, but when I was younger, I would like to be an activist. You know, I like to make change. Put a little push of pressure to make some change because we need change. There can only be change, and if we don't be proactive about change, then change happens to us, doesn't it?
Yeah, someone decides for us, eh?
Mm-hmm. So we have to be proactive in change. And yeah, I mean, there is a groundswell, like with Voices of Freedom and various other movements in New Zealand, but also around the world, saying clearly, yeah, the system's broken and how are we going to do it? And really, I guess our little permaculture is my way, and it always has been, of showing another system.
Alternative.
Showing, I don't want to just feed my family. I want to be able to feed the greater community a little bit, you know. And then if we had 20 permacultures, we could feed everybody. We wouldn't even need any trucks. I mean, those vegetables, everything in the supermarket, they grown miles away, and yet we've got the best growing conditions on the planet.
Just next door, just there. Yeah, and the price, and that's the thing, right? If it gets cheaper because it's massive produce. If it's something that requires more attention, of course it's going to cost more, because that's something that people say a lot, right? Oh, it's so hard to buy organic.
Because it's expensive, but it's not hard to grow it.
It's not hard to grow.
See, also what we're doing is we're taking away, because we're not making compost, everything gets put in a plastic bag and gets put in a landfill. Everything. Everybody's too people too lazy. They just throw it all in a plastic bag. organic material. That's compost. That's biodiversity right there in your hand. You throw it in, even if it's been sprayed, it should still go back in the land. Back in the land, you see. They're taking out the system is broken because it's taking part of the system away. All of that produce, you imagine all the food that we grow, half of it ends up in a plastic bag in a landfill.
Yeah, this is something that I've been doing for a few years since I came to New Zealand and had the opportunity to live in the Coromandel, which is like not hard to have a little bit of buckets.
Even if you just throw it at the side of the road, you're doing more for the planet than you are putting it in a damn plastic bag.
And that's another twisted thing, right? Like putting the rubbish. Yeah,
and the council give you a plastic bag. And the council...
They sell you.
What's that? They sell you... they sell you a plastic bag. When we were younger, they used to sell you a bag, but it was layers of paper and the outside was waxed. So it could handle a few showers of rain. Put it in the bag. Wet stuff needs to be wrapped maybe, but don't put wet stuff in there. And then, it's right. Any food stuff shouldn't go in the rubbish. It just shouldn't go in the rubbish. It should be in the environment where it came from. You're taking it out of the cycle, you see. That's the problem. That's a big problem.
Roger, would that be the same with meat, with bones and stuff?
Yeah, all of it. Bones have got a lot of minerals. So what I do with bones is I put them in the fire and it burns them, and then they break down, and we don't lose the minerals through the fire, and the minerals go straight back, and then it breaks down easily, and the minerals go straight back into the soil. So I put burnt bones in, and it's really simple. When I've got any bones, I throw them in the fire, and then the fire gets cleaned out. Then I've got wood ash, and the minerals from the bones gets put in the compost. It's amazing what you can compost, and it's amazing where you can find materials to compost. My friend, the Herberts, they have a business over in Flaxmill Bay, and they harvest kinna. They have a quota to harvest kinna. So I get the kinna after they've taken the row, and this was a waste product. It's full of seaweed, little bits of seaweed. They eat seaweed, and the guts, and calcium, heaps of calcium. People buy lime, which is calcium, to put on it's going to be thrown away. I get tons of the stuff, hundreds of bags of it. Put it around. That's one of the reasons why that fruit tastes so good. And make compost from that. There's all sorts of industries around, or little industries like that, where you can find material that you say, hey, bring it to me and I'll turn it into compost. I've been making compost out of herbs kinnas for quite a long time. And it's a stinky, messy business. Can be. But you should see the garden grow, It's worth it.
Yeah. A lot of authorities, a lot of people in power smell way worse. Thank you very much. Roger, what a pleasure. I think we have to do this every month. So special to have you here, my friend.
I'm honoured, and I thank you, and I love what you guys are doing, because you're breaking down the barriers, aren't you? You're breaking down the barriers between us all, because we are just one. In the end, it all boils down to one.
We cannot do the mind reading yet, so we're just making the best out of conversations, man.
Not yet, did you say?
Not yet. Yeah, that's what I said. Like, I think we're pretty amazing. Like, I really hope humanity stays in this planet, because the planet ain't going nowhere, humans are at risk.
Exactly.
When we say,
we're
ruining the world. Nah, man. World's fine, but humans. So I really hope that we stay around, we stick around, because there are so many cool things to discover and to do. So, that's how I feel when people ask me, you don't want to have kids and stuff. And I'm like, that's a stupid question, like you put pressure on people when you ask that stuff, like these things should happen. You should not feel peer pressured because everyone around you is having children and struggling to raise them. So
nowhere to live.
Yeah,
can't afford the rent.
Right? But this is something that gets me sometimes, because the natural selection, the natural process is to procreate. Is to have children so they keep learning and stuff. So this is something that every time that I answer the question, I'm like, well, not at the moment, but it's a shame that it's because of a broken system. People cannot have more children and make a better world to live in. And it's a struggle. So, yeah, I'm I'm a realistic person, but like of course I'm optimistic. You know, I have to be. It makes more. It feels better. You know, I feel like I operate on a better wavelength when I'm on my positive side. So yeah, I hope we get to see some cool stuff still in this lifetime.
You have two choices, don't you? You can operate from a positive framework or a negative framework, and which gives you a better outcome.
That's right. That's right. Thanks, my friends.
You're most welcome. It's been a pleasure.
It's been cool. We're going to bring you back for sure. And for you watching us at home, show 98, pretty cool. So on Wednesday, we have our show 99 with Brandon Amoamo. He's a Kayako Maori, amazing guy, knows a lot about Maori culture. We're going to learn a lot on Wednesday. And then on Friday is show 100. Yeah. So we're going to bring the whole family. We're going to bring all the co-hosts. We're going to bring some of our friends around. We're going to have a cool get-together in a nice corero on Friday. It's been fun. I will see you guys. Thanks, Taylor. Very quiet tonight. He was was a good listener tonight. Yeah. Are you going to say something? I thought you were.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you is good.
Can I do a shout out for a couple of lovely people that I met?
Do it.
Indigenous people from the Tuhoi.
Because that was your journey, right? I was about to wrap it up, but like you were in the bush for how many days?
4 days. Yep. Went to a place I love in Te Urewera. Did you know that Te Urewera is called that now because it has the same status as a human being? So anything that happens to it in a court of law is the same as a human being. If you do anything to that big space of bush, it's a bit like the Wanganui River. It also has the status of a human being. And my shout out was to Whai, who was a lovely lady who helped me at the Waikato Moana motor camp, and her niece, Iwa and Pete, and they picked me up and gave me a ride because I had 18 kilometers. When I came out of the bush, I had 18 kilometers to walk back to my ute on a road, and I was exhausted. It had been 4 days and 3 nights, and the last night before I came out, I'd actually completely lost the track, didn't know where it was, and had to find it in the morning. And I was sleeping underneath in a sleeping bag under a fly, and right in the middle. And if I have to turn back, I know I could turn back, but that's 3 days. And I'm trying to find one to climb this mountain in 1 day out. And so I had the choice of either find that track or it's 3 days walk out, and then I wouldn't be here. I'd still, and they'd probably be search and rescue looking for me.
Wow.
Because I wanted to, so.
What helped you to find the track? What was
in the end? So what happened is the track hasn't been used for 2 years or so, possibly because of the COVID thing. There's not a lot of people going out into the bush, and so there's nobody to clear the tracks, and there's these massive trees, and they're constantly blowing down, either snapping off or uprooted constantly because they're right up in the mountains. So there's huge storms. And those trees obliterate the tracks, but also But remember, those trails have been run for hundreds of years by thousands of bare feet. So you can see them easily. You can be walking through thick, dense bush, and then this is a trail. It's not a game trail. Deer, wild pig. This is a human trail. You can see that's a human trail, and it is. They have trail markers. And what happened to me was the trees were all down, and it took me a long time to get around them. And also I had a little axe, and I'd try and make it a bit clear for the next guy, next people. And then also the markers, it's all moss. The markers are covered. So I'd scrape the markers so that people could see, because and then the markers were missing, so I'd put them back. So anyway, this held me up because the hut was supposed to be 8 hours walk, which is a long walk anyway. It was more like, I think I had about a 6 hour walk to get there, and it took me 10 hours or something, and it was into the night, and it was dark, and I had a torch, headlight, and I was following the trail, and then it got dark, and then suddenly there was someone had put a little reflector on one of the markers. I thought, there it is, so you can see clearly the marker. So I followed it and followed the next one, and this is easy, and kept following them. And then I could hear water, and I was going downhill from down, and then I could hear water. I thought, there's something happening here, and there's a bluff and a waterfall. So I didn't want to take any steps, and this was the last one, and I couldn't see any more. And then I realised there was a rat trap at the bottom of it, and what I'd done is I'd got off the main track and gone on a rat line, a bait, rat line where they kill rats, they poison rats, and I'd gone right down to this gully, and 3 steps I went, and then I was exhausted because I'd been walking for 3 days, and I was exhausted, so I have a little fly and a ground sheet, and I made a little camp, but there's not really anywhere to camp. So anyway, I kind of do camping amongst the trees. I'll show you some photos. I'm in these trees, and I was exhausted, so I thought, I'm going to think about this in the morning. I'm not going to worry. I'm just going to think about it in the morning. And then all night, or most of the night, I'd wake up and I'd hear myself thinking, wow, what do I do now? I'm not really sure. I'll leave it till the morning. So I went back to the last track marker, and 3 steps and I would have fallen over a bluff and gone down. I'd broken a leg, whatever, dead. I would be dead, no doubt. 3 steps, just 3 steps. But because I heard the water, I knew there was something up, and there's no other marker. So I thought, I got to backtrack. So I did a backtrack. Then I found the fork in the daylight where I'd gone wrong, and then half an hour, 20 minutes later, I was at the hut. Wow. I was looking for this hut. And then that was Saturday. That was yesterday. Yesterday morning, I was on top of that mountain. And then I came out of the hut. I had a cup of tea. I made a cup of tea at the hut and a bit of breakfast. And then I just a few minutes out of the hut, and then you come up onto the highest peak. And there's the whole of the Urewera. And you'll see on my Instagram, Corowood Instagram, you'll see that video I've taken of the circle. You can see the lakes, and it's just that bush. You cannot see any civilization. There is none. That's a big bit of bush, and it's beautiful. And every Kiwi should go there and just to see that place, and Waikato Moana, or just go for a little walk. Go to Waikato Iti, absolutely beautiful. It's sad because there's not the bird life there used to be, but it's still absolutely beautiful.
Thanks for sharing the experience. Wow. Again, we're going to have to bring you back, man. Thank you so much, Roger.
It's a pleasure and an honor. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll be back on Wednesday. Peace.